At that point, it hit me that God was sending me a job that he felt that only I could do at that moment in time. And I needed to let go of the fact that I was expecting to have a certain title and expecting to go on a certain trajectory, because my assignment was to be a vessel for legacy.
Welcome to the Lead Boldly podcast, where strategy meets action and leaders go from dreaming to doing. If you're a purpose-driven change maker ready to turn stalled plans into sustainable results, this show is your blueprint. Hosted by strategist and executive coach Deondra Wardelle, owner of On to the Next One Consulting. Each episode showcases bold leaders who bring strategy to life through people development, policy deployment, and continuous improvement. Tune in and gain the clarity, courage, and the tools you need to turn big ideas into real impact and make strategy a daily practice for your team.
I am over the moon excited for my conversation with today's guest, the one and only Dr. Nichole Wilson. Dr. Nichole is a senior health executive. She is a transformational leader, and she is so passionate about advocating for community impact and advocating for people. She currently serves as Vice President of Community Health Operations at Indiana University Health. She is the chairman of the board for the Women's Fund of Central Indiana and the Madam Walker Legacy Center. Dr. Wilson holds numerous roles across not-for-profit boards, civic groups, professional associations, and international service organizations, including Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Links Incorporated, and the National Association of Health Service Executives, just to name a few. She is recognized and celebrated for her strategic leadership, dedication to mentoring, she's one of my mentors, and commitment to uplifting communities. I am honored and delighted and excited to welcome Dr. Nichole Wilson to the Lead Boldly podcast. Those are my generic sound effects. Hello, Dr. Nichole, and welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me on your esteemed podcast, Leading Boldly.
Yes. And it's only appropriate to have you on as a guest. As I shared during your introduction, you have been such a mentor to me as I volunteer and in my professional work as well. So I am so excited to introduce you to my audience, which most of them probably already know you because you're so accomplished. But I want to get into it and talk about who you are, what it is that you do, and the impact that you make in your professional role and in your volunteer roles.
Thank you.
So,
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, there is this saying by Coach Vince Lombardi. He once said, leaders are made, they're not born. And they are made by hard effort, which is the price all of us must pay to achieve any goal that is worthwhile. However, after looking at your resume and your bio and everything I know about you, I think there's an exception to what Coach said, because I could see you as a newborn in the nursery, working with staff, working with the other newborns to provide education and best practices as it relates to safe sleep practices and developmental care. So I'm curious, and of course that's, I'm being lighthearted here, but that's the type of leader I see you as, someone who's been leading from day one. So even as a child, do you have a memory of how you stepped up and were, recognized these leadership skills that you have and how you acted upon those?
Great question. And I do think that my mom would agree with you. My mom often says to me when I'm talking about my daughter, Nala, and how she has become such a little leader, even at the age of 8 and even before the age of 8. She says, I see so much of you in her. You used to be the same way. So I do think my mom would agree with you. In terms of, let's see, my first memories around leadership, and actually, yeah, I do have a great example. And this recently came to my attention in memory by my aunt. So my aunt, she works with someone who I used to go to grade school with. And once he figured out that she was connected to me, he brought up an instance when we were in grade school. So we went to Holy Angels, which is right on Martin Luther King. And he recalled during our time, and it could have been third or fourth grade, I cannot remember, where he was being bullied. And people were always talking about him and shaming him for whatever reason. I don't even remember the reason. And he said to my aunt, I love Nichole because she always stood up for me. She always made me feel like there was someone who had my back and that she wouldn't allow others to say things in front of her that were bad about me. And my aunt shared that with me probably 3 or 4 months ago saying, do you know so-and-so, he works with me, and he saw on social media that we were posted in a photo together and said, are you related to Nichole? And I said, absolutely, I know him. And she recounted that story of when I stuck up for him. And that is fresh on my mind, right? Of a time that even when I was young, that I feel like I was leading.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Because it is so indicative of how you move and operate,
Mm-hmm.
the consistency in terms of how you lead. And so, moving on, and as you progress through your leadership journey, whether in your career, education, or volunteer roles, what specific experiences influence how you lead today?
I would say that the experiences that I had watching my mom, watching my grandmother and my aunts sacrifice for our family are the things that make me want to be great. That really drives me to be excellent in everything that I do because I firsthand witnessed the sacrifice that they made for myself and my cousins. Recently, my two cousins, Franklin and Victor, they are both principals within Lawrence Township. There was a big article about them and how they persevered to be principals. And there's a picture of us growing up in this article when we were kids, and we were all sitting at this small kitchen table. And people don't know, but we all lived in the same house. My mom, his mom, the three of us kids, and my grandmother. That's a lot of people in a 2-bedroom house. I know Franklin and I shared a room. I don't know where everybody else slept, but I had a bed. I don't know where everybody else slept, but there weren't enough beds for everybody, right? And my grandmother worked night shift, what is now IU Health, right? As kind of a candy striper and nurse assistant so that she could help make sure that her daughters and we had the opportunity to have the best education and go to a private school, Holy Angels at the time, but it was a Black school, and just seeing them work several jobs, consolidate into one house to make sure that we had the best possible chance of getting all of our needs met. All of those sacrifices. My mom didn't finish her college degree because she got pregnant with me and had a new responsibility. I think about all of the sacrifices that they made to their potential and them being great leaders and them wanting to have a fabulous career and to do the things that I'm doing today. And I owe them. I owe them excellence. I can't afford to be mediocre. It's not in my skill set. It's not in my purpose. And I witnessed Black women raised with little means, way smaller than what we have today, but they made it possible for me. So there's no way that I cannot be excellent. I can't even fathom trying to show up in a way that is not top tier because of my family.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it together. Nichole, that was thank you for sharing that story and that experience. And I think that's true for most leaders. When you look at a person's journey, it ties back to their family. Oftentimes, family provides that foundation. They give us roots so that we have the wings to soar. And hearing the story about your grandmother being a candy striper at IU Health and seeing what all the things you're doing now in the healthcare space, what a full circle moment. And especially, you are a senior executive in healthcare. You serve as a board chair for multiple not-for-profits. You're an international leader in our sorority. What motivates your commitment to leading both professionally and a service environment? Because you could continue on with that greatness in the healthcare space alone with what you do with your daytime responsibilities. What is it that inspires you to stretch out and to give even more in these volunteer roles?
For me, Deondra, it boils down to legacy. And I had to get to this point to realize that the things that I'm involved in, I feel like, one, they have to align with things that I'm passionate about, things that are on purpose, but things that are not about me, that are about others and that are about even the future. So when I took this job in healthcare, it was at a really interesting point in life. I was on my successful track of being a healthcare executive, working my way up to COO. I was vice president at another company. And I had the largest service line. I managed over 500 million in revenues, had 2,500 staff members, and I was on my way up the corporate climb, just like I was taught to do and what people expected me to do. And it was also during COVID when life changed for everybody, but life changed in the Wilson household dramatically in that my husband lost both of his parents 3 months apart during COVID. We were managing their health care when they were alive, and literally they were living in crisis. And we had a small child who I ended up pulling out of school. She was just in pre-K or junior K, whatever it was, but it was too much to manage taking care of both of his parents who were in their last few months of life and a small child and getting her to school and COVID shutting down and we can't go to the classroom and managing two careers. And I was in healthcare. And during that time, healthcare was rough. And I was specifically over the urgent care sites and the virtual portions of care that had to be developed during COVID. So a big chunk of the business that was still open during COVID. And so when I was approached about taking this particular job, which is drastically different than your typical healthcare operating role, at first I thought, this is not for me. I'm on my way to COO. I'm on my way to the top and doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And when I really took a hard look at the role, and my current employer didn't back down. They kept recruiting me and saying, you're the person that we want for this role. You're the person that we want from this role. I ended up reflecting on the impact that this role could have, because the role that I'm in now is about legacy. I get the opportunity to design programs, lead initiatives that support the most vulnerable people in our community. And there's a direct project that is under me that impacts the neighborhood I grew up in. And I started to think about the potential of this job and the fact that my grandmother worked at this at IU Health Methodist back in the day, and that all of the people that I saw during COVID dying were people in my community, people in my churches, and even family members. And at that point, it hit me that God was sending me a job that he felt that only I could do at that moment in time. And I needed to let go of the fact that I was expecting to have a certain title and expecting to go on a certain trajectory, because my assignment was to be a vessel for legacy, and to make sure that through this healthcare role that I have, that I'm leaving the community in a better spot than when I came in. So that's one thing that resonates with me. Even with my work with Women's Fund and Madam Walker Legacy Center, I came to Madam Walker at a time, and several of us were recruited to the board at a time when Madam Walker Legacy Center was on its last leg, like literally. It was a rough time. The building was dilapidated. There was literally like $40,000 of a program budget. Every year we would go to, the organization went to Lilly Endowment to pay the operational expenses of the building. And there was a huge debt that was owed on one of the properties associated with the organization. And it was looking like it needed to be sold and was going to be sold, and that the community was going to lose it. And when I was asked to serve, it sounded like, oh my gosh, this is a mess, right? And I started to think about legacy. So my aunt worked at the Madam Walker Manufacturing Company. My mom and aunts went there to watch movies, and it was such a gem in the community. And I started thinking about legacy and what a shame it would be if the Black community let the building and the organization fail. And by the time my daughter gets to be my age and maybe has the opportunity to sit on the board, right, of the Madam Walker Legacy Center, she shouldn't have to work as hard. Like, we should have done something so that they can enjoy the future. Children now can enjoy in the future the organization and all that it means and all that it stood for in honoring Madam Walker's legacy. So there's so many examples. If I can't root in purpose in terms of legacy, that's probably not the organization for me to lead in. Women's Fund is the same. I have my own story about Women's Fund and how we're leading boldly right now to expand to a statewide presence, to make sure that we stand on our own as our own 501c3. We are going into advocacy because women and girls are disproportionately impacted with all of the things from education to healthcare. And this is an organization that can make an impact. And so we're growing, we're investing, and we are leading boldly to have more of a statewide presence and to be independent so that we can advocate for the change that's needed in our community and for the future. So those are the things that they all tie back to legacy for me.
Legacy, purpose, impact,
Yeah.
and, connecting back to your family. Again, going back to those roots and wings, the foundation established by your family, and then you thinking about the needs of the future, not only your daughter, but other children.
Yeah.
And you are willing to, as much as I thought I knew about you, I've learned even more about you. I know about your connection to purpose and how you lead with intention. And something I have often wondered, and I'll just throw this out here. I often will say to myself, I want to lead like Nichole. Nichole is doing this, and that. I want to do that too. But I had to shift from that because
Mhm.
it's not, we all have to
Right.
live our life, find our own purpose. But what I find particularly interesting about you, especially when it comes to volunteer roles, whether it's a part of an organization, it's a part of a not-for-profit board, it's a service organization, no matter what. Sometimes there is a hesitancy for people to sign up to volunteer, to be on a committee, much less take on a leadership role. And as you've already talked about, you serve as a chairman of a board for two organizations, the Women's Fund of Central Indiana and the Madam Walker Legacy Center. What is it that you would say to someone else who may be on the fence of, I have this corporate role, I see an impact that I can make in the community, I just can't figure it out, whereas you're an executive and you chair two boards? What advice would you give?
So I do chair 3 boards, so don't do what I do. But that's okay. I have resolved this. And this goes back to even my leadership in high school. In high school, Deondra, in the same year, I was captain of the cheerleading team. I was president of the show choir. I did the announcements in the morning and sometimes in the evening. I was vice president of student council. And I have resolved that I have a different level of capacity than some people do. And I'm comfortable with that. I used to feel like people would always judge me. You're doing the most, you're doing it. But as long as it's being done with excellence and I'm rooted in my purpose, I feel like it's not hard for me. I feel like I'm so dedicated to it that I figure out how to figure it out and bring people alongside on whether it be committees or boards who are just as aligned. Christian Little Strickland, who is the president of Madam Walker, she was on the board. We were on the board together. And I remember one day when another board member said, one of you two has to lead this. And we looked at each other and I was like, it ain't me. It's got to be you, but I'll be on the board to make sure, it's successful. And so she ended up going through that process. But I am okay with having the capacity that I have. And I'm okay with sharing with others that you don't have to have the same capacity to be impactful. Figure out what your capacity is and work the heck out of it. And be as rooted in the outcomes that you're supposed to produce. And don't worry about me, because at first I was like, why are people beating me up? Because I'm doing so much, but I'm doing it good and I'm happy and my husband don't have a problem with it and all of those things. But it's not for show. It's just who I am. Like I was doing the most and being just as involved in high school and middle school as I am now. And for me, yes, I do have limits, but what I'm finding is like there's a board that I'm on now that once this cycle is up next year, I'm going to say thank you. It's time for me to part because the legacy connection isn't quite there. And I'm not able to be as motivated to continue to give my time at a high level. I committed to it, so I'm going to give it at the highest level that I can. But my advice to others is make sure it aligns with your purpose and your skill set or interests, something that, like, I say this sounds crazy. I could chair Women's Fund forever. I could chair Madam Walker forever. I know that there's term limits, but I'm that passionate about it and making sure that they have that statewide impact for Women's Fund or that Madam Walker has a national presence across the United States. I'm so passionate about that. I could be doing this forever. And if you don't feel like that about your organization, then bow out and don't worry about my capacity. Just focus on what it is that you can do and do well and have that same feeling like I could do forever. It'll work out.
It really will. And, you talk about centering around purpose and passion.
Mm-hmm.
Something else you also mentioned is around people.
Yeah.
And I've had the pleasure of serving alongside you and in different opportunities that originally I thought, I don't think this is for me. You saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and you tapped me on the shoulder and brought me along, and it was, oh goodness, it was such a life-changing experience for
Mhm.
me, serve with you in those different capacities. And so again, looking at all the different ways that you serve,
Mhm.
from the C-suite, board chairman, all the different things that you do, I know that people, that's important.
Mhm.
So, how do you make people development a key part of what you focus on as a leader and bringing others alongside of you?
I feel like everything in leadership begins and ends with people. Because if you feel like you're leading and you look back and ain't nobody following you, as the saying goes, perhaps you're just on a walk. If you don't invest in the relationships to get to know who people are at their core and to engage in that, then you're not going to get the best out of the people who are in your leadership team, who are on your work team, who are on your committee. Um, Even in every organization that I lead in, when I have people who are a part of my committee or whatever the case may be, even last night I was on a committee call before we even got into it. How is everybody? How y'all doing? How was your week? Are we celebrating anything? Or taking the time to remember that someone close to someone on my committee had a death in their family and checking in on them. I think you have to be invested in people to be a leader. And you have to then take from there, once you've established that relationship and authentically um, make sure that if they are aspiring to improve, to lead, to be in your seat one day, that you have an active role, whatever that may be, whether it's a mentorship, whether it's advice from time to time. I love mentoring. There's a very few times where I have turned down having a conversation with somebody, because sometimes people only need one or two conversations. Sometimes people need continuous investment, and sometimes people need investment outside of you. And I say, listen, you need to go to do some professional development over here or within your field, or to learn something different so that you can pivot. So I try to do what I can to encourage that continuous investment in whatever ways that I can. And sometimes I'm not always me, which is okay. You know, um, some of the things that I like is coaching women who aspire to be in leadership roles and executive roles, just working on their executive presence, things that nobody can teach you from a book, right? How to read the room, what chips to play at the leadership table, and which ones you really shouldn't die on that hill, right? That's career death if you kind of go down that path. How to be your authentic self, but still make sure that you get the tough issues to the table, that you don't coward from them. Those are the types of things that I feel like I've been most impactful in investing in others.
Yes, and without a doubt, you are a coach at heart, someone who believes in mentoring. I want to concentrate more right now, specifically in the healthcare environment, when it comes to coaching,
Mhm.
and even continuous improvement. You've been exposed to practicing the Toyota Kata. I'm gonna shake my
Mhm.
praise leg on that. But in healthcare,
Mhm.
how is it that you keep the team focused on shared goals and moving toward progress, especially when external factors change and there are competing priorities and all these things that are outside of, you know, your control and the team's
Mhm.
control. So how do you keep them going in the healthcare environment?
Let me measure my words here. Healthcare, just like many other industries, is going through a lot right now. We are faced with some significant funding cuts at the federal and state level. And unfortunately, those cuts are going to impact our community members, our patients who have the highest disparities. And that's the work that I directly work in, and our communities, because most of my role is community facing. And how do we make sure we're taking care of our residents and neighbors, whether they come through our hospital walls or not? And this has been probably the roughest 8 months, and a few years ahead of us, I think, will be rougher. I have been focused with my team going back to purpose and going back to the stories of the individuals that they face and support in the community. I have a team of community health workers. I have a team of project and program managers and consultants, and they are every day in barbershops, in community centers, in school systems, in food pantries, seeing people who are now experiencing more poverty, more health disparities than they ever have. And I have told our team, when you get down, think about the single mom who came in, who needs you. When you are down, think about the gentleman who you saved the other day because you took his blood pressure and it was 200 over 110, and you convinced him to get help. And now he came back with a normal blood pressure, and he was literally one heartbeat away from not being on this earth, and how much he praised you and thanked you because he has another day with his family. Think about those stories. Think about the elderly woman who could not get to her health appointment, but you provided a way for her to get there and followed up with her, and how grateful she was, and how you connected her with the church that was nearby so that somebody could check on her. It has to get that real and that raw for us to even feel like we should feel fortunate and blessed that we have the opportunity to help in that kind of way.
And that goes back to what we've talked about, just the thread throughout this conversation, the importance of people, seeing people, taking care of people, elevating people, and particularly in healthcare. Everything is centered around people and what's in their best interest in their care.
I agree, because one thing about healthcare, we're not like any other corporate company where we're making Coke cans or we're making toys. These are people's lives. This is about life or death. This is about survival. This is about a grandma or a mom or dad being around to see their child graduate high school or get married or go to college or be great. And those things shouldn't be taken for granted, but they also shouldn't be taken away from people when there are programs and mechanisms in place to help support them. And that's where we're struggling today in healthcare, is a lot of those things are being targeted. And even though facts and figures will suggest and tell you that there are certain groups that are dying more, that are implicated more, the current thinking is we can't be targeted at the data. And that's disappointing.
It is. And, this is the continuous improvement piece of this conversation is, the data is telling. You cannot ignore the data. The other piece of that, and this is the two fundamental tenets of continuous improvement: looking for ways to improve processes and demonstrating respect for people. And those are things that apply to healthcare as well. I know from my background in healthcare, that's something that it always comes back to. Yes, looking at the data, what can we do to continuously improve, particularly when things are out of our control? And of course, at the top of all that is demonstrating respect for people. I have such a tremendous amount of respect for leaders like you in healthcare who are able to do both, who are able to concentrate on that data and also concentrate on people and continue to do what needs to be done to move things forward. And a huge part of what you talked about is that storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's the data, but remembering those different scenarios where a person's life was changed simply from getting a blood pressure reading
Mm-hmm.
or providing transportation or a follow-up call, letting people know that they are cared about. And I think now more than ever,
Mm-hmm.
everything we must do must be centered around letting people know that we care
Yeah.
and want what's best for them. Nichole, you mentor and inspire many professionals worldwide. I follow your social media, all your channels, and I see the comments of, like I said, leaders across the globe, um, who you give advice, you have these conversations, you coach, you provide just different leadership development opportunities. And so based on your corporate experience,
Mm-hmm.
not only your corporate experience, but again what you do in the volunteer space, what advice would you give fellow senior leaders, fellow executives who know that they are being called to serve,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps on a board or in some type of volunteer space,
Mm-hmm.
but they are unsure of how to start or where it is they should concentrate their efforts?
Great question. I do believe that every successful leader does have an element of focus and intention. You can't be involved in everything just to build up your resume and to say that you were here, there, and everywhere, and be effective. And I just happen to have a lot of places that I am passionate about and can still carry forward, meaningful action. But starting with one or two areas is a great thing and not overloading yourself. I think the one thing that provided the most clarity for me, and I'd be happy to share this tool with anyone, was actually an exercise that I learned through one of the programs at Women's Fund. Back in the day when I was learning about Women's Fund, I was learning about philanthropy, and I can't think of the name of the book, but there is a book, and I have it in my shelf, and it has some worksheets in there that takes a person through their personal values, and you have to identify your top 5 values. You have to identify your top 5 areas of impact that you're most passionate about. And then you have to identify your the top ways you feel you can give, whether that's financially, time, leadership, whether that's through your marketing skills. And that exercise really opened my eyes to being focused and intentional, and also allowed me to make a philanthropy plan or a community involvement plan that says this is how much we're going to set aside to give in the areas. This is how much we're going to set aside to serve and be intentional with our service. Even if you don't know the organization, at least knowing the values and the areas of impact where to narrow it down. And these are the best ways that I can give of myself, whether that is time, talent, treasure, advice, consultancy, whatever that is, and really mapping out those opportunities. That has allowed me to better say no when an opportunity comes my way that doesn't align with that exercise. I have been able to say with fortitude that I appreciate you thinking of me. I appreciate you whisper my name at the board meeting, but I would prefer to send you someone or give you a referral to someone because I am at my capacity for, board involvement this year. I found that the other thing that I have been sought after for on board assignments is transformation. Like if organizations were at one point and needed to get to another point, that actually is what got me involved on corporate boards. I sit on 3 corporate boards, and I've had to learn different industries, which I love. I'm on the AAA Hoosier Motor Club corporate board, and learning about the automotive industry and the service industry that AAA is involved in, from insurance to roadside assistance. That has been fascinating, and it's challenged my brain to think outside of the box. I sit on the Citizens Energy Group board, learning about energy. I didn't go to school for that, right? I didn't go to school for that. But I'm here making decisions about wastewater resources, about water, about gas, steam, chilled water that I didn't go to school for. I'm nobody's engineer. And I'm on a board that services seniors, a retirement living organization, all of which have their different dynamics of supply and demand and how you have to learn the business. And so I say all of that to say, don't be afraid to learn something if it's intriguing. And if you have a skill set that transcends those things mentioned in your passions, and your values, and your areas of impact, you might be able to learn a different industry and still be impactful in how you move the needle and how you contribute, just by using your skill set and being open to learning a different business. Now, do I feel like I could be a senior gas executive? Probably not, but I can hold my own in a conversation and understand the elements and the issues that are related to it. And that took some time, effort, and energy, but it was worth it. And it stretched my brain. It allowed me to think there's no industry that I can't learn, just enough to be impactful.
So tying back to purpose and realizing, what's important, what's aligned with one's values, so that you can say that you're clear on what to say no to and what you can commit to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part of that is that curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
remaining open. As a leader, we don't just arrive. There's always an opportunity to learn something new, to stretch and grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Nichole, as we wrap up, I could talk to you forever and a day, but I know you have things to do. I have things to do as we lead boldly. So we will switch to rapid fire. Dun, 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 dun. 3 questions for you.
Okay.
Share what comes to top of mind. Are you ready?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. What does lead boldly mean to you?
To me, it's authentic. It's purposeful. It's rooted in legacy and others. It's not about self. It's focused on outcomes and not just output.
So you've shared one resource. You talked about the exercise worksheets
Mm-hmm.
that you were able to work through as a member early on of the Women's Fund of Central Indiana on the board. Do you have or can you share a favorite quote, another leadership resource or habit you would recommend to our audience?
So in our household, one of the quotes that we often say is an African proverb, and Nala knows it, my husband knows it, and we resonate on it, is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I don't believe in leadership that anyone makes it to where they are. And it may look like, oh, they are the best at this, that, and the other. But I didn't make it to where I am by myself. There were a lot of people supporting me. There was a lot of family members praying for me. There were a lot of people who mentored me, who opened doors for me. And the work of my team is because we have a lot of people together focused on an aligned purpose.
Yes. That proverb, it really says it all, particularly in leadership.
Yeah.
You get further along on the journey when you know you're not alone and where you're going together.
And that, a lot of people, last week I was doing a workshop and someone asked me, well, how do you do it all? And I would say one thing is being rooted in that purpose, but I also have said these things. You got to pick the right partner in life. That's very important. You have to have the right partner in life. I think that if anybody knows my husband, he's just as community oriented as I am. And we knew that when we first met each other. We liked serving together. We liked being involved together. And my daughter is just as involved. And that's just who we are, right? So pick the right person. For me, being an executive, my day does not work without my administrative assistant. You have to pick the right partner and you have to pick the right administrative assistant. Those are the things that have helped me, manage everything and make sure that I can still, live life, be a good mom, be a good wife, and also be rooted in purpose and do a good job at work.
Indeed, teamwork does make the dream work.
Yes.
And again, I could talk to you forever and a day. What you do with what the Wilson family does
Mm-hmm.
with philanthropy and volunteerism is could be a masterclass and a textbook on giving back, because your husband and even your daughter, I have been in events where she's center stage speaking,
Yes.
Raising money for issues relating to little girls.
She is.
And yet she's balanced,
Mm.
she's actively playing sports. She's a hooper,
Yep.
and I don't,
Mhm.
and she's taking on culinary classes
Yeah.
and all the different things. So like I said, that perhaps that's for another podcast,
It is. Yeah.
another Lead Boldly, how a family can lead
I
boldly.
know.
So
We're very fortunate that we can work in community. Like that part of our job is working in community. So that's very fortunate for our household.
thank you. And thank you to you and the Wilson family for what you do to invest in community.
Hmm.
So, Nichole, you're doing all the things, all these magnificent, purpose-filled, impactful things. Where can people follow you to keep up with what you're doing, and especially with the different organizations that you're a part of, that they may want to support? What's the best way to keep up with Dr. Nichole Wilson?
Well, yes, I am on social media, on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, but I also want you to follow the organizations that I'm passionate about. So, Women's Fund of Central Indiana, the work that we're doing at Madam Walker Legacy Center, they all have social media platforms. I want people to follow Lead Boldly podcast because they are highlighting what you're doing is highlighting all of the wonderful women and initiatives that are going on in the community. So please make sure you guys follow Deondra and what she has going on. She's an incredible leader. Also, I'm an open book. When people introduce me to people, I will absolutely reply, follow up. I give out my cell phone number to those, who are up and coming. And I do follow back up. And I do make time, even if it's one conversation, because if someone took the time and if they felt inspired or, motivated to do something different because of a speaking engagement or because they saw me out in the community, I'm more than happy to connect with them. Also look at IU Health and what we're doing in the community, the Indy Health District, our community impact investment funds that we're donating to organizations, just all of those things. Don't just follow me, follow the things associated so that you can learn more how that they can be impactful and you can share those resources with others.
Absolutely. And we will also include links to those different organizations that you mentioned in the show notes so that people can follow and connect. Dr. Nichole.
Just Nichole.
I know, but I want to put some respect on your name because no one handed you that doctor title. You worked for it.
I did.
So, yes. So let's be clear. Dr. Nichole, my sister Nichole.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance, sharing about balance and your boldness with us. your leadership across healthcare and other industries and what you do in the volunteer space and how it is you serve in global organizations is simply a masterclass in leading with purpose, clarity, and heart.
Mhm.
We are so honored to learn from your journey and grateful for the example that you set for leaders everywhere. And I want you to know that I respect you and I love you more than my crown collection.
That
That's
is
big.
important. That's real love.
That's
I
big.
love you too. Thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you for the podcast. Thank you for highlighting women and initiatives in our community and all that you're doing.
Thank you. So, to our audience, thank you so much for joining today. Like Dr. Nichole said, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our Lead Boldly podcast series and register for our upcoming Lead Boldly webinar. You can find all of that information directly on my website. Until then, remember to embrace your royal calling, to lead boldly, build strategically, and impact endlessly.
Thanks for listening to the Lead Boldly podcast with Deondra Wardelle. If today's episode helped you take one step closer from dreaming to doing, be sure to follow the show and subscribe on YouTube. You can also learn more at DeondraWardelle.com. And if you know a leader ready to bring strategy to life through continuous improvement and bold action, share this episode with them. Until the next time, let's continue to lead boldly, build strategically, and impact endlessly.
Keep on moving on.